Hey, what's up everybody? We're back with my latest project, and I figured I would attempt a tutorial here at the beginning of it versus when it was finished, because that has not been working out for me so far. That's why there's no videos of my other projects. But anyways, this is my fourth project, and while I've gotten pretty good at the projects, I still suck at the videos, and so just bear with me, and we will try to get through this one. So the foam that I've used is just a 2-inch insulating foam board that can be found at either Lowe's or Home Depot, probably some other places as well. But it runs right at $50 for a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet of it, which is not too bad. Of course, as you can see, this is a couple of different pieces of foam, but this is still not an entire piece. The table that it's sitting on is a 3-foot by 3-foot card table. So, and the foam on the bottom doesn't go all the way back, and you'll see that from the side view. But this is not a full piece of foam, and probably far from it. But anyways, speaking of the foam, as you see, there are a few different levels, and that's what we're going to go over today, is how to connect them. But I wanted to show you here, this is one solid level, this level here, as is this one. The only one that isn't solid is this center one here, and that's because I use scraps there. And the reason that I bring that up is because if it weren't for using the scraps there, the cave would not be there. So, sometimes using things that you normally wouldn't use lead to other things that you normally wouldn't have thought of. So, and I probably would have thought of the cave after it was kind of too late, and then created a whole lot of work for myself if I wanted to go there with it. But anyways, just wanted to mention that. But like I said, the main reason for the video today is the methods of connecting the layers of foam to where they don't leak as far as the water is concerned. I got two different methods that I use. The method there on the very top piece here, as you see, that is the one method, and then all these other are the other method. But from this vantage point, you can't see the seam here, but you can see it on all these other ones. That and this method up here is almost impossible to leak, whereas these here are almost impossible to keep them from leaking. But I think I've finally gotten that down, and so that's what we're going to go over today. This method up here I refer to as the drop down method, and then this one here I'll refer to as the island method, and you'll see why when we get to that point. But I have to break it down to show you all that, so I wanted to just do a quick shot with it running. Also, when you're working with water, you need to have a lot of patience, because it has a mind of its own, and it will go everywhere you do not want it to go, and a lot of times not where you want it to go. It's amazing how you can keep carving to get it to follow the line you want it to go, and it keeps going wherever else it wanted to go in the first place. But either way, we will move on to the next part, get this turned off and broke down, and show you what goes into it. The people and the tree and the little fire there, that's really there just for scale, just to kind of give you an idea of what everything will look like when it's all said and done. There won't be a tutorial on the finished work. All of the finished work I've learned from a guy named Luke Talon. I'm going to put a link to one of his videos in the video description, so you can check out his stuff. That's where I learned, and there's no sense in me trying to tell you what I learned from him. It's just best to get it firsthand. And his videos are high quality, very entertaining, and very informative. None of his had the running water. I had already had a project with running water when I came across his channel, and so I then wanted to incorporate what he does to the running water. Because to be honest with you, the only way you can tell his are not real when you're looking at the video, as far as a real location, is that his water isn't moving. But yeah, when he's just right up on it with his video, if the water were moving, you would swear that it's a live shot of somewhere that he's just used as his inspiration for his build. But anyway, so we will move on to the next part and show you what this is all about. Alright, I guess we'll go over a couple things while it's still running. The first thing, I guess, is the lighting on a project that has running water like this one. I've found with my projects that, and as you can see there, backlighting is really the best as far as shining on the water and showing the movement of your water. So once the window is back there, and obviously you can see the reflection of the actual window there, but as we move across here on the back, as the light gets more behind it, it brings out the water. And of course it's evening time, so it's not really bright outside. But and then the top here gives you a real good example of that. So, and of course there is an overhead light on as well, but if I were to turn that off, that would look about the same. So backlighting is really where it's at when it comes to showing the movement of the water. So that's kind of its own challenge, and that just depends on the project and where you're going to put it and all that. So there's really no surefire way to have great lighting. You just have to work at it, kind of like with every other part of this. So so this is the drop down method we were talking about, and so let me get some clearer shots there. There we go. And essentially, I mean, it is, you know, what it sounds like. It is the one piece of foam dropping down into the one below it. And like I said, that method is pretty good. It keeps from having any leaks. I mean, the water pretty much just doesn't have any other choice but to go where you want it to go, provided you've got everything notched out deep enough. And then down here, these we will have to pull apart to show you, but you can kind of get an idea as far as the bottom piece just matches up with the top piece, and then we've got it cut out around that, creating a little island on the top and bottom of each layer of foam. And then that so far has seemed to take care of any of the leaking of, you know, water in between layers there. So, but then I just got my tube running up through the back. That's really one of the only waterproofing things that I've done, is just waterproof the tube going in the back. And I'll show you my waterproofing on that. And of course, I just got the tube running up through the table. And without too much shaking, I'll try to show you the underneath. There's just a side view of that's a tea light candle there that I use for the flames. And I have a tutorial on that. I just haven't posted it yet. And sorry about the aloe plant being in the way there. But anyways, so that's that. And I guess we will get it turned off now and break it down, and we'll show you what's going on a little bit more in depth between the layers there. Okay, so here's the top piece. We've taken it out. It takes a little bit of work because of the tube going through the table, but anyways, so this is the drop down method, and as you can see, it's just pretty much a little drop down there at the bottom of the foam. But the way to achieve that obviously is to cut away all of the foam other than the little bit of area that you want to drop down. So in this piece wasn't that big of a deal, but these other pieces, as you can see, would have been a lot of trying to carve, or just take off a 1/4 inch or so on the bottom, and keep it level. And that was just, with what I have, it would just be impossible. Pretty much all I have is a knife. There are tools that you can use for this type of stuff. Hot wire foam cutter being one of them, which would make quick work of everything that I've done here, but all I have is a knife, and so that's just what I'm working with. But anyway, so this is the best method, because like I said, there's just no way really for it to leak. And I'm going to try to do this without being all jerky with the camera. And then this is up top where they just fit in to those little areas there. And as you can see, no water around anywhere, no leaks or anything. So that's definitely the best method. I just could not do that on these other layers. I have another project where I did do that on a few of the layers, and they were all about this big here, and just trying to get that one to look like this one up front. I mean, it took forever, it seemed. So I just didn't want to have to try to do that on this one, because like I said, there's a lot of ground to cover if I was going to try to do that, especially on that bottom, or second to bottom piece there. But anyway, so that's the top one, and we will get that one out of the way and show you the second one. Okay, we got the screws up, and I'll get this one up and kind of out of the way. Yeah, I went ahead and glued my guy down because I kept getting tired of him falling over every time I'd walk by and shake the table just a little bit. So anyways, so this is what I was talking about as far as the islands. You can see why I refer to it that way. But that right there seems to be the trick in keeping the water from running all over the rest of the top of the foam. And then, as you can see, you kind of do the same thing on the top piece of foam. And the key is to carve out further on the top as far as your blank section. You want it to come out past your blank sections on here, because if not, the water, just the way that it sticks to surfaces, will kind of reach up and grab that top piece of foam there in the crack, and then will slowly work its way outside of where you want it to be. So like I said, this is the best way that I've found in doing just flat, straight on connections. So, and of course it took a while to get them right, but keep working at it and you'll get it. And this one right here was my first one, and so it looks the worst when you're looking at it straight on. The idea is what you want to do is you want to get like that there, where you can see the hole from the side, but when you look at that from the front, it disappears behind the front wall. And so that way it has plenty of clearance to come around from the back if it happens to be leaking through the back, but you don't see the big hole on the front. This one here broke off last night while I was taking it apart, so now you can actually see the hole right there. But once it's painted, that should hopefully blend in. And if I haven't apologized already for the shaky camera work, let me apologize for the shaky camera work. Alright, so here again, shaking the water off the bottom. Here again, just another carve out. And I don't know how well the camera's picking up coming around the sides there, but that's kind of what it would look like on the bottom as far as getting your holes going to the side so you don't see them from the front. And then of course there's the top of it. So like I said, pretty much islands on the top and on the bottom. That one. And like I said, after you do it a few times, you get the hang of it and you get them looking pretty good. And I don't know if you've noticed how some of the carve outs there on the bottom are bigger than others, and that's because those are the ones that kept leaking, and so I just kept carving until finally we got it taken care of. That was just a filler since I'd used scrap. I needed something to even out the look. Some more shaky camera work. Alright. And so as you can see, no water outside of where you want water. So like I said, that appears to be the ticket. I initially had planned on running a bead of caulk all along there on each one of these, but since none of them are leaking or anything, I think I may just leave the caulk off of it. One of the problems with the caulk is once you do that, then you can't break it apart. And of course, once it's finished, you typically can't break it apart without exposing, the seams between the layers of foam, depending on where you're going to break it apart at. So we're going to try not to break it apart, but if you ever need to, I imagine that the caulk would create a problem and you would probably end up breaking parts of it as you were trying to get them unstuck. If you're going to do that, hot glue is the ticket, because then you can use a hair dryer to heat it back up and then slowly pry apart your pieces of foam. Okay, and so final layer. Did have a little bit of a leak from my hose in the back, but that actually happened when I went to start taking it apart, because the waterproofing stuff I use is not really flexible. what the back of that one looks like. Just want to show you in relation to the holes there. That kind of gives you the best idea of what you're going for. Shaky camera. So that's what you're kind of trying to achieve. The island on the bottom and then the island on the top piece with the cutouts around to where enough water can pass through. And like I said, that appears to keep the water where you want the water to be, because it can be a challenge sometimes. And actually I'm having a little bit of a challenge at the very end where it runs off. I'll show you that here in just a moment. And it was not leaking the first day that I had it set up and running. It just started leaking today, and I've actually spent the majority of today trying to fix the leak, and I still have not, but I'll show you that real quick. Alright, so this is where I have the water running off the edge of it. And of course, since it's not running, I won't be able to show you exactly how the water is coming out. But this is my first project that I've kept the water within the perimeter of the project. All of my other ones, you see where the water runs over either on the side or on the front, but typically it runs down into another pond or pool or whatever below it. But with this one, I wanted to keep it contained to the top for now, although in the future this likely will drop down into the beginning of another project, but we'll see. But anyways, evidently when I was digging out this hole here, I must have gone in a little too far with my knife, because as I had it run today, as I was getting ready to try to make this video many hours ago, where you see that piece of tape, water started coming through. Now, I doubt you can see it on the video. Maybe you can. Initially, before I decided that I was keeping it within the perimeter, I had taken the knife and scored just a couple of lines straight down. And so this line over here that I had scored, I had water coming out. And so I thought waterproofing that part would fix it, and I tried that and that did not work. And so what I did is I came in here. That gap used to be a lot thinner, like way thinner, and so I pretty much took and brought the gap back, and also took some of that off, and pretty much trying to keep the water from touching right there. After I accomplished that, I still had the leak, just not on the face of it right there, but it was dripping out the very bottom of the foam. So that's the only thing I can think is I must have accidentally either cut all the way down to the bottom, or the foam is not waterproof. And it probably ran for 3 or 4 hours before I started having the leak right there. So I guess just enough water finally got on it and worked its way down. But that piece of tape is there pretty much guiding the water down below and into the trough there. So it's pretty much going in down there next to where the water would be coming through anyways. So it's an issue, but right now it's not an issue, just because it's leaking into where the water is supposed to go anyways. But that should be fixed when I do the waterproofing part of where the water is going to go. I use a polyurethane, which I'm going to show you here in a minute. And so once I get a good coating of that inside the foam, that should take care of that leak. But I couldn't get the leak fixed, and I was running out of daylight for the video, so I wanted to just go ahead and get this going, so that's why it's still there. But anyway, so we'll get the camera set back down and I'll show you the materials I've used, and that should be pretty close to wrapping up. Okay, so this is pretty much everything that I've used to this point, which can all be found at Lowe's with the exception of the DuraClear varnish and the paint that's sitting next to it. I got both of those at Michael's, but the paint's just an acrylic paint, and that the polyurethane finish there, it just seems to be the best thing that I could find to waterproof my projects outside of using caulk, which I really haven't tried using caulk too much. I mean, I have in the past, like in work and stuff like that, so I know how it works in regards to, how it's going to perform for me. But I'm afraid that it won't let the texture of the foam come through, because once you paint the foam, it pretty much looks like a rock as it is, without really doing too much to it. And I was afraid that putting normal caulk, and the seam would somehow stand out, but or the color difference in the paint, just because the two different materials that you're painting, the foam being kind of absorbent and the caulk being repellent. Anyways, so yeah, so the seed starter tray, that is pretty much the reason I use that, because it is the perfect depth to go within a piece of foam, if that's what you're using, like if you want your pond or whatever inside your foam. This particular setup, it's not like that, and I could have really used anything that pretty much just needs to hold enough water to be above the top of the pump or the top intake of the pump while everything is running, but not overflow when everything is not running. So the seed starter tray seems to be the best thing for that on my other projects. Like I said, I've made 4, and I've used either the bottom or the top of the seed starter tray in my other projects, so it seems to be something good to use. And like I said, primarily just because it fits down into the foam. It has to be cut down a little bit. It's a little bit taller than the foam, but it, I found, has worked the best if you're trying to keep your water area within your project. But anyways, and then the pump, I got that, like I said, at Lowe's as well. That runs about $25 or so. Seed starter tray, I think, was like $4 or $5. And then the varnish, I believe that was right at $9 or $10. And the paint, I don't remember, because I typically buy smaller bottles of paint, and those are usually like $1 or $2 for the much smaller bottle, like that one right there. But anyways, I use a lot of gray, so I just figured I'd buy the big one with the gray. But so yeah, and so then the tubing is just a normal clear vinyl tubing. That particular one is a 3/8 inside diameter. The pump comes with 2 different attachments to it. You can probably read it there on the package, but I believe it is 3/8 and a half inch. So like I said, I'm using the 3/8 inside diameter. I guess if you wanted more flow, you could use the half inch, but the 3/8 seems to be working just fine. The pump is adjustable. It says 80 gallons per hour. That's on the highest setting. I'm not sure what the lowest setting is in regards to how many gallons per hour, but all of my other 3 projects that I've used that pump on, they're all on the lowest setting, and that's just because the project itself wasn't big enough to allow for the highest setting. And on this particular, the new project, I built it in mind with having the pump on the highest setting, and so we've achieved that without any overflow, so we seem to be good on that. But anyway, so that's pretty much everything I've used that you saw in the video. Like I said, relatively cheap to get something like this started. The main part up until now has just been carving and getting the foam pieces how you want them, for in the end. But anyways, I will get the bottom piece of foam back up here, show you how I put the drain in, and that should wrap us up. Alright, and before we get to that, I just want to show you real quick. If you liked my little campfire, that's pretty much just a tea light candle with obviously the top ripped off of it, and I've used hot glue to build my flame, and then those are just twigs from the yard, just kind of cut in half and then glued in place, and that's that. The only pain is just, if you've got a bunch of them in your project, which I do on my other project, just getting all the fires lit. Kind of a pain. It'd be nice to hit a switch and make it all happen, but kind of limited for right now. There's other ways to do it, but that's all I've got right now. But anyways, hoping to get a tutorial up on those, and if so, it'll kind of explain a little bit more in depth on how the fires go. But this is pretty much just the top of a creamer bottle with another top of a creamer bottle on it, just trying to make an extension so it connected to the water level in the reservoir, so I didn't have any splash or anything like that. And pretty much what I did is I just traced around this and then took my knife and cut a slit into the foam. That way I could actually take this and sink it into the foam, so it's actually stuck up in there, and then I've just got hot glue around it to hold it in place. But the waterproofing aspect comes from the foam being countersunk. I'm sorry, from the bottle being countersunk into the bottom of the foam, and so that pretty much alleviates any issues where you have the leak, unless you do something like I did up here, where, like I said, apparently I've somehow come through the bottom or cut in too far, and that's where my drip is, where I had that piece of tape. But this was pretty simple here. That was pretty much the easiest part of everything. Just, you know, like I said, trace around it, cut your slit into the foam, and then just push that down in there with some pressure and hot glue it. You're set up and ready to go. So I believe that's it for this one. Didn't want to make a multi-part video on this, but due to the lack of editing abilities that I have, it's just how I have to do it. So, but anyway, so I guess that's it. Appreciate you watching, and I guess we'll see you on the next one. Take care.